The ultimatum, the massive central chamber of the Galactic Council, fell silent as Ambassador Thomas Reeves strode toward the center platform. His footsteps echoed against the polished stone floor, each step deliberate and unrushed despite the 300 alien representatives watching with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. The chamber itself was a marvel of architecture, a vast dome with walls that shifted colors like an aurora, representing the unified spectrum of galactic species. Thomas stopped at the precise center, directly beneath the floating adjudication circle, a ring of pure energy that marked the speaking position. He stood alone, a solitary human figure surrounded by the most powerful governing body in known space. Behind him, at the chamber entrance, waited a small delegation of humans, their faces deliberately blank. The 7 Grand Arbiters towered above everyone from their elevated positions. Their bodies, twice human height with translucent skin that revealed complex internal structures of light, radiated authority that had gone unchallenged for millennia. Species 4291. Designation Human, announced First Arbiter Vox Lumen, its voice resonating through the chamber without visible technology. You stand accused of illegal technological advancement, violation of resource allocation directives, and deliberate concealment of military capabilities. The being's inner lights pulsed with each word. How do you respond to these charges? Thomas smiled, an expression unfamiliar and unsettling to many gathered species. He reached into his pocket and extracted a small metallic sphere no larger than a golf ball. Immediately, security drones surged forward from hidden compartments in the walls. But as they approached, they froze midair. Throughout the chamber, display screens flickered and died. The ambient lighting stuttered, plunging sections of the vast room into momentary darkness. Emergency protocols failed to activate. For 80 years, Thomas said, his voice cutting through the growing murmurs of alarm. We've endured your sanctions, your guidance, your thinly veiled exploitation. He held the sphere higher. Today, humanity isn't here to be judged. We're here to deliver terms. Panicked whispers spread through the assembly as representatives realized their communication devices had gone dead. For the first time in 900 years, the council chamber was completely isolated from outside contact. Second Arbiter Myth-Rel, a being composed of interlocking geometric shapes, leaned forward. This is unprecedented. Security breach of a council session carries penalties under Statute 7290, Section 12. Thomas interrupted. I know your laws better than you do, Arbiter. I've studied them for decades while you've been too busy collecting our resources to notice. From a hidden chamber overlooking the proceedings, Admiral Eleanor Wright watched through a specialized visor that allowed her to see through the council's supposedly impenetrable security. Her cloaked vessel, the EDS Defiance, maintained position in high orbit above the council homeworld, undetected by what the council believed was the most advanced sensor network in existence. Shields holding steady at planetary depth, reported her tactical officer. Quantum displacement field is stable. We remain undetected, Eleanor nodded. And the fleet? All vessels in position throughout council space, awaiting your command. Back in the chamber, Thomas activated a holographic display that emerged from the sphere. It showed the Sol system, then expanded outward to reveal 12 previously unknown human colony worlds, all established beyond council-monitored space. Impossible, whispered a reptilian delegate. Their warp capability is restricted to what you believe it to be, Thomas said, hearing the comment with enhanced senses. Humanity has maintained a careful facade. What you've seen of Earth, our technology, our military capacity, our resource usage has been precisely what we wanted you to see. The Third Arbiter, a crystalline entity, chimed with harmonic tones of distress. What is the meaning of this display, human? Are you confessing to violations? Thomas laughed, the sound sharp in the tense atmosphere. No, Arbiter. I'm informing you that effective immediately, Earth demands full sovereignty, removal of all resource quotas, and recognition as equals within galactic society. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of sounds, clicks, whistles, harmonic vibrations as representatives voiced objection or shock. The First Arbiter raised a limb, restoring order with practiced authority. These demands are rejected, Vox Lumen stated flatly. Earth remains a developing world under guidance protocol. Your unauthorized colonies will be investigated and appropriate sanctions applied. Thomas's expression hardened. I don't think you understand. This isn't a negotiation. He tapped the sphere, and the hologram changed to reveal Earth's true military capabilities. Detailed images showed advanced warships hidden in dimensional pockets throughout the solar system. Weapon systems beyond Council-approved technology. Defense grids that could repel even the Council's enforcement fleets. By our estimates, Thomas continued, we now possess military strength equal to your central defense forces. We've spent generations preparing while you dismissed us as primitive. In her observation post, Admiral Wright received an urgent communication. The Council's War Ministry is mobilizing, her intelligence officer reported. They're activating communication channels to their enforcement fleets. Right on schedule, Eleanor murmured. Prepare response packages Alpha through Delta. In the chamber, Thomas could see the shift in the arbiters' postures as they received this same information through their neural links. The only communication still functioning. You have 48 hours to reconsider our terms, Thomas announced, retrieving the sphere and stepping back from the adjudication circle. After that, Earth withdraws from all agreements. He paused, making eye contact with each arbiter. And we go to war. The fourth arbiter, a gaseous entity contained within a hovering mechanical shell, drifted forward. This is suicide, human. Even if your technology is as advanced as you claim, we represent thousands of worlds. You are one planet, are we? Thomas replied. How confident are you about the loyalty of those 1,000 worlds? How many suffer under the same guidance you've imposed on us? How many would join us given the chance? The question hung in the air as Thomas turned and walked back toward the human delegation. Behind him, the first arbiter's voice boomed. You will not leave this chamber. Guards, detain the humans! But the security forces remained frozen, their systems compromised. As Thomas reached his delegation, he turned back to face the Council one last time. For centuries, you've told yourselves you're shepherding younger species for their own good. Today you learn that one of your flock has grown teeth. He nodded to his team, and they activated personal transport devices, technology the Council believed humans were decades from developing. As they began to shimmer with the effects of molecular displacement, Thomas delivered his final words. The clock is ticking. When they vanished, chaos truly engulfed the Galactic Council chamber. The arbiters frantically attempted to restore systems, while representatives demanded protection, answers, or immediate military response. In orbit above, Admiral Wright watched the erupting confusion with grim satisfaction. All personnel accounted for, her officer confirmed. Ambassador Reeves and his team are aboard. Set course for Rendezvous Point Omega, she ordered. And send word to Earth. Phantom Protocol is now active. As the Defiant slipped away through a fold in space-time, Eleanor knew that after decades of planning, humanity had finally cast off its chains. The next 48 hours would determine whether they had secured their freedom or started a war that would reshape the galaxy forever. Yang, the hidden fleet admiral, Eleanor Wright stood motionless on the bridge of the EDS Defiance, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. The massive view screen showed Earth's true military might for the first time in decades, over 200 warships emerging from quantum displacement fields throughout the solar system. Ships that, until today, had officially never existed. Displacement field collapse complete on all vessels, reported her second-in-command, Commander Jackson. The fleet is visible to conventional sensors. Eleanor nodded, her weathered face revealing nothing of the emotion churning within. After 30 years of service to Earth's secret navy, the day she had both anticipated and dreaded had arrived. Status of Council monitoring stations in the outer system. Blind and deaf, Admiral. Dr. Thorne's systems are performing exactly as designed. As if summoned by his name, Dr. Marcus Thorne entered the bridge. Despite being the most brilliant physicist humanity had ever produced, he looked unremarkable, a slight man with perpetually disheveled gray hair and tired eyes. Those eyes had seen little sleep in recent weeks. The quantum displacement field will hold for another 18 hours before requiring recalibration, he said without preamble, though I admit I never designed it to conceal an entire fleet simultaneously. Eleanor turned to face him. But it will hold? Marcus managed a tight smile. It will hold. 80 years of deception won't fail in the final hour. The Admiral returned her attention to the display. where Ambassador Thomas Reeves's shuttle was approaching the Defiance. How long until the Council realizes what we've done? Marcus moved to a nearby console. They're already trying to restore their monitoring network, but understanding how we've hidden from them for so long, that will take time they don't have. The memory of how this all began flashed through Eleanor's mind. She had been a junior officer when Earth discovered the truth. When a damaged alien vessel crashed in the Atacama Desert, carrying data that revealed the Galactic Council's darkest secret. The Council hadn't been guiding younger species toward advancement. They had been systematically suppressing them, harvesting their resources, and ensuring no new power could ever challenge their dominance. It had been Earth's greatest shock, coming just 5 years after first contact. The revelation that the benevolent galactic community that had welcomed humanity was actually keeping them in carefully managed submission. On the Council homeworld of Ixalan, Security Director Kelvor paced in the Central Operations Hub as technicians frantically worked to restore systems. His forearms moved in agitated patterns, upper limbs gesturing while lower ones remained clasped behind his back, a sign of extreme stress among his species. "How is it possible," he hissed, "that humans could disable our most secure facility? Their technological level is clearly documented." Chief Analyst Rule, a being of living metal, looked up from a workstation. "Director, I've been warning the Council about humanity for years. Their advancement curve is unlike any species we've encountered. Their adaptability, their—" "Spare me your retrospective wisdom," Kelvor snapped. "I need solutions, not theories." Across the room, a junior analyst's console chimed. "Director, we've detected energy signatures in the Sol system, signatures that match no known human technology." Kelvor moved swiftly to the station, his multiple eyes widening as the data streamed in. This is impossible. These readings suggest military capability comparable to our enforcement divisions." "The human wasn't bluffing," Roll said quietly. In the Grand Council chamber, emergency systems had finally been restored. The 7 Grand Arbiters convened in a private session, their forms arranged in the traditional circle of judgment. First Arbiter Vox Lumen's internal lights pulsed with agitation. "This unprecedented defiance cannot stand. If Earth succeeds, other development worlds will follow." "The humans must be contained immediately," agreed Third Arbiter Crystallis, "before others learn of this." Sixth Arbiter Moro Karn, representing the militaristic Zavarian faction, leaned forward. "Containment is insufficient. Earth must be made an example. I propose immediate deployment of the enforcement fleet with full sanction for planetary subjugation." There was a moment of silence as the implications settled over the gathering. Planetary subjugation had not been authorized in over 3 centuries. Second Arbiter. Mithrel's geometric segments shifted uneasily. "We should consider the humans' warning. If their technological capabilities are truly as advanced as demonstrated, one primitive world cannot stand against the combined might of the Council," Moro Karn interrupted. "Regardless of what deceptions they've managed, they are still merely humans." Back aboard the Defiance, Ambassador Reeves had joined the bridge command team. His diplomatic uniform had been exchanged for military attire, revealing his true rank as Strategic Intelligence Director. "The Council is voting as we speak," Thomas informed them, reviewing data on his personal device. "Our intelligence network within their systems remains undetected." "And their decision?" Eleanor asked, though she already suspected the answer. "Exactly as predicted. Enforcement fleet deployment with subjugation authority." Thomas looked up, meeting her gaze. "The Zavarian faction is driving the response just as our models forecasted." Dr. Thorne shook his head. "They still don't understand what they're facing. After all this time, they still underestimate us." Eleanor turned to her communications officer. "Signal all ships to implement Phantom Protocol Stage 2 and contact Earth. I want to speak directly with the Defense Council." Within minutes, the main screen shifted to show 5 grim-faced men and women seated at a conference table on Earth. General Diana Foster, head of the Defense Council, spoke first. "Admiral Wright, we've received your report. The Council's response is confirmed by our own intelligence. They've authorized subjugation." Eleanor stood straighter. "Then we are authorized to proceed with full implementation of Phantom Protocol?" General Foster nodded. The vote was unanimous. You have full operational authority, Admiral. Earth stands ready. As the transmission ended, Thomas moved to Eleanor's side. 80 years of preparation. Generations living a lie. Building in secret, knowing this day might come. Not might, Eleanor corrected. Would. The Council has never allowed any species to achieve true independence. We're simply the first to fight before they realized we could. Across the bridge, Dr. Thorne was studying new data with increasing alarm. Admiral, we're detecting movement from the Council's staging area at Proxima Centauri. Their response fleet is mobilizing earlier than anticipated. Thomas frowned. That's not possible. Even with their fastest ships, they shouldn't have received authorization yet. Unless, Eleanor said slowly, they were already preparing to move against Earth before your ultimatum. She turned to her tactical officer. Full scan of approaching vessels. The results confirmed her suspicion. These aren't just enforcement vessels, she said grimly. This is a subjugation fleet. They were planning this before we revealed ourselves. Dr. Thorne's fingers flew across his console. The quantum displacement field can be reconfigured to... No, Eleanor interrupted. No more hiding. Tactical, bring all weapons systems online. Communications. Signal all fleet vessels to assume combat formation Delta. She straightened her uniform and gazed at the tactical display showing the approaching Council fleet. They thought they were coming to discipline a disobedient child. Let them discover they've challenged an equal. On Ixalan, Security Director Kelvor received the transmission from the fleet commander with growing horror. What do you mean, human vessels in formation? Where did they come from? Unknown, Director, came the strained reply. One moment our sensors showed standard Earth defense satellites, the next, hundreds of warships. Advanced design, unknown propulsion signature. Before Kelvor could respond, the feed was interrupted by incoming emergency transmissions from multiple sources. Across the display, alert symbols appeared over Council monitoring stations throughout human space. Status report, he demanded. Chief Analyst Rule's metallic features were rigid with shock. All Council facilities in Sol system are reporting human vessels appearing from nowhere. Quantum signatures unlike anything in our database. Director, they're deploying in strategic formations that suggests they've been planning this for decades, Kelvor finished quietly. He turned to the communication station. Contact the arbiters immediately. In the Council chamber, the 7 arbiters received this news with varying degrees of disbelief and alarm. 6th Arbiter Morokarn's reaction was the most pronounced. Deception. Treachery. The Zavarian raged, its specialized war membranes unfurling in primal response. I demand immediate full-scale military response. 1st Arbiter Vox Lumen raised a calming limb. We must understand the situation before. There is nothing to understand, Morokarn interrupted. The humans have revealed their true nature. They must be crushed now, before other development worlds follow their example. 5th Arbiter Loxeman, usually the most reserved member, spoke up. Perhaps we should consider their terms. If their capabilities truly match our enforcement divisions, appeasement is weakness, Morokarn snapped. I invoke Emergency Protocol 9. As military authority, I assume temporary command of all Council defense forces. The chamber fell silent. Emergency Protocol 9 had not been invoked in 700 years, but it... Donaghy first strike the Council enforcement fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, a magnificent array of over 300 warships representing the combined might of 1,000 worlds. Their hulls gleamed with an iridescent metal unknown to humanity until first contact, their weapon systems capable of reducing planetary surfaces to molten slag. Commander Drav of the Zavarian Guard stood on the command deck of the flagship Inevitable Dominance, his scaled skin reflecting the dim blue lighting. As the senior officer under Arbiter Morokarn's direct authority, he had been granted the honor of leading this enforcement action. Status report, he demanded, 4-fingered hands clasped behind his back. All vessels in formation, Commander. His second replied. Earth defense systems are tracking us but have made no hostile movements. Their communications channels are silent. Drav's lipless mouth curved into what his species considered a smile. They realized the futility of resistance. Good. Prepare the formal surrender demand as specified in subjugation protocols. Commander, interrupted the sensor officer, her voice wavering. I'm detecting unusual energy signatures throughout the system. Specify. Unknown, sir. They're fluctuating, almost as if Her words were cut off as the main view screen filled with alerts. Throughout the solar system, quantum fields were collapsing in sequence, revealing what had been hidden from Council sensors for decades. Not the 200 ships that Admiral Wright had initially revealed, but over 500 vessels of varying classes, from agile interceptors to massive dreadnoughts. They had been positioned in a three-dimensional web that now closed around the Council fleet like a fist. "Impossible," breathed Drav, his confidence evaporating. "Our intelligence indicated, sir, we're being hailed," the communications officer interrupted. After a moment's hesitation, Drav nodded. On screen, the display shifted to show Admiral Eleanor Wright standing on the bridge of the Defiance. Her uniform was simple but immaculate, her expression calm. "Commander Drav," she said without preamble, "I am Admiral Eleanor Wright of the Earth Defense Force. Your fleet has entered sovereign human space with hostile intent. You will power down weapons, reverse course, and return to Council space immediately." Drav's neck ridges flared in anger. "You are in no position to make demands, human. The Galactic Council has authorized subjugation protocols. You will surrender your ships, dismantle your illegal technology, and submit to Council authority." Eleanor's expression didn't change. "You misunderstand the situation, Commander. This isn't a negotiation. It's a courtesy. You have 5 minutes to begin withdrawal." Before Drav could respond, she terminated the transmission. He turned to his tactical officer, fury evident in his movements. "Target their command vessel. All ships to battle formation, Talon strike." As the Council ships began to maneuver, Eleanor watched the tactical display with detached professionalism. Beside her, Dr. Marcus Thorne monitored readings from a specialized console. "They're deploying exactly as predicted," he noted. "The Zavarian tactical doctrine hasn't evolved in 3 centuries. Eleanor nodded. "Deploy Nexus Shield." Throughout Earth's solar system, previously dormant satellites activated in concert. For decades, they had masqueraded as simple communication relays or scientific instruments approved and inspected regularly by Council, representatives who never detected their true purpose. Web of energy began to form between them, creating interlocking fields that surrounded Earth and extended outward past Mars. On the inevitable dominance, alarms blared as the energy web materialized. "What is this?" Drav demanded. "Some kind of defensive grid," his science officer replied. "But the energy readings are beyond anything in our database." Drav's training reasserted itself. "Irrelevant. Begin the attack. Target their primary vessels and defensive installations." The Council fleet opened fire, hundreds of energy weapons discharging simultaneously in a display of overwhelming force that had subdued countless worlds before. The beam struck the Nexus shield and dispersed harmlessly, transformed into ambient heat that dissipated into space. "Return fire," Eleanor ordered calmly. Earth's fleet responded with precision, rather than blanket attacks. Each human vessel targeted specific vulnerabilities on their Council counterparts, weaknesses that shouldn't have been known to a developing species. Aboard the inevitable dominance, Drav watched in horror as 30 Council ships reported critical damage within the first exchange. "How are they penetrating our shields? How do they know our configurations?" "Sir," his tactical officer's voice was strained. "These attack patterns, they're exploiting design weaknesses that are classified at the highest Council levels. On Earth, billions watched the battle through their view screens. For most citizens, this was the first revelation that their world had been preparing for war on this scale. Streets fell silent as people gathered around displays, witnessing humanity's true military capability unveiled at last. In the United Earth Government Emergency Session, Defense Council head General Diana Foster addressed the gathered representatives. "For 80 years, we have maintained the greatest deception in human history," she said, her voice echoing through the chamber. "While appearing to comply with Council restrictions, we've been building, researching, and preparing. Today, that preparation is our salvation." A representative from the African Union stood. "The people deserve to know why this was kept secret from them. Why our own government has been lying to us for generations." General Foster nodded. "Because the Council has spies everywhere. Because every transmission is monitored. Every official document scanned. Only through absolute secrecy could we develop the technology needed to stand against them." In orbit above Mars, the battle intensified. The Council fleet, recovering from their initial shock, began to implement secondary protocols. breaking into smaller formations to reduce vulnerability. They're adapting, Thomas noted from his tactical station on the Defiance. Eleanor nodded. As expected, deploy Phase 2 countermeasures. Throughout the solar system, human vessels executed a precisely choreographed maneuver, realigning into formations that neutralized the Council's new approach. It was as if they had anticipated every possible response. On Ixalan, the Council homeworld, Security Director Kelvor watched the incoming data with growing alarm. "This isn't possible," he muttered. "Their tactics counter our protocols perfectly. It's as if they've been studying us for—" He trailed off as realization dawned. "For decades," he finished quietly. Turning to Chief Analyst Roll, he asked, "How long have your reports on human adaptability been ignored?" The metallic being's features shifted in the equivalent of a grimace. 17 years, Director. I've been warning about their potential since their response to the Proxima restriction. In a secure chamber beneath the Council's main assembly hall, First Arbiter Vox Lumen met secretly with representatives of the Luminari, a philosophical species known for their opposition to Council military action. "The reports are confirmed," the Luminari delegate said, her form a swirl of gentle lights. "The human fleet is prevailing. Enforcement vessels are withdrawing from Sol." Vox Lumen's internal lights dimmed with concern. "This changes everything. If a development world can successfully challenge the Council militarily, it is not merely their military capability that concerns us," the Luminari replied. "It is what this reveals about the Council's true nature. For centuries, we've participated in what we believed was guidance of younger species. If the humans have proven this to be suppression instead, the implication hung in the air between them. Back in the battle, the Council fleet was in disarray. Their formations broken, communications disrupted, nearly a third of their vessels disabled or destroyed. Commander Drav had never experienced such a comprehensive failure. "Signal all remaining ships," he ordered, his voice hoarse. "Tactical retreat to Rally Point Gamma. We must regroup." As the Council vessels began their withdrawal, Admiral Wright watched with no celebration in her expression. This was merely the opening move in a much longer game. "Do we pursue?" asked Commander Jackson. Eleanor shook her head. "No, let them retreat. We've made our point." She turned to Thomas. "Begin Phase 3. Thomas nodded and opened a secure channel to specific vessels throughout the fleet. "Initiate Operation Sleeper. All designated units proceed to jump coordinates." Across the fleet, 20 specialized stealth vessels broke formation and moved to predetermined positions. Without fanfare, they activated their experimental jump drives and vanished, not retreating, but advancing deep into Council space on carefully planned missions. On Earth, as news of the victory spread, celebrations erupted in cities worldwide. 80 years of living under Council restrictions, of carefully managed technology and resource quotas, had fostered a deep resentment that now found release. In the United Earth Government Chamber, a representative from the European Collective stood. "What happens now? We've won a battle, but the Council controls thousands of worlds." General Foster's expression was somber. "This was never about winning a single battle. Phantom Protocol has many phases. Today was just the first, and the next?" asked another representative. "Even now, Special Forces teams are deploying throughout Council space. For decades, we've established sleeper agents and hidden outposts. Phase 3 activates those assets. On a remote Council." The Alliance shifts news traveled faster than light across the galaxy. As human stealth vessels activated their information packages on world after world, the carefully maintained illusion of the Galactic Council began to unravel. Species that had been classified as developing for centuries received proof of their deliberate suppression. Resources that had been allocated for the greater good were revealed as systematic theft. On the planet Tarova, a world whose inhabitants had repeatedly been denied advanced propulsion technology for safety reasons, crowds gathered in the capital city. Their four-armed forms surrounded the Council embassy, demands for answers growing louder by the hour. Similar scenes played out across hundreds of worlds. Some reactions were peaceful, formal inquiries and diplomatic protests. Others turned violent, with Council representatives forced to flee or barricade themselves in their compounds. Diplomat Jax Murray watched the Taravan demonstration from a nearby building. For 12 years, he had lived among these people as an Earth Cultural Attaché. of hundreds of human diplomats who had built relationships with suppressed species while waiting for this day. He activated his secure communicator. Murray reporting. Taravan response proceeding as predicted. Local government is calling for emergency review of their council status. From her position on the Defiance, Admiral Wright received dozens of similar reports. The tactical display in the war room had been modified to show political responses rather than military movements. A galaxy-wide map with systems color-coded according to their reactions. 17 systems in open rebellion, reported her intelligence officer. 43 have severed diplomatic ties with the Council. Over 100 are demanding verification of the information we've provided. Thomas studied the display. The Proxima cluster is still firmly aligned with the Council. No surprise there, they've benefited most from the arrangement. Eleanor nodded. And the core systems? Mixed responses. The Luminari are publicly calling for Council reform. The Vex Confederation is reinforcing their borders but making no statements. Dr. Thorne entered the war room with fresh data. The Council's communication network is in disarray. They're implementing emergency protocols to isolate affected systems, but our infiltration was too widespread. And our sleeper agents? Eleanor asked. Thomas checked his tablet. 87% successfully activated. The remainder either compromised or unable to establish secure connections. Eleanor turned her attention back to the Galactic display. Begin Phase 4. Contact all receptive systems and extend formal alliance offers. On the Council homeworld of Ixalan, chaos reigned in the Grand Chamber. Representatives shouted accusations while the Arbiters struggled to maintain order. This human treachery must be answered with overwhelming force. Sixth Arbiter Morokarn demanded, war membranes fully extended. While we debate, their lies spread like poison. The transmissions contain historical records from our own archives. Fifth Arbiter Lox Eamon pointed out. If they are lies, they are our lies. The chamber fell silent at this unprecedented statement. For an Arbiter to suggest Council deception was unthinkable. First Arbiter. Vox Lumen's internal lights pulsed with barely controlled anger. Arbiter Lox Eamon, you tread on dangerous ground. I speak only what many are thinking, Lox Eamon replied. For centuries we have claimed to guide developing worlds toward enlightenment. If our true purpose has been suppression and resource acquisition, perhaps the humans are justified in their rebellion. Security Director Kelvor, monitoring the session from his command center, turned to Chief Analyst Rule. The Council is fracturing, precisely as my models predicted once the suppression protocols were exposed. Rule's metallic features shifted. And yet you never shared these predictions with the Arbiters. Would they have listened? The system has worked for 900 years. No one wanted to consider its fragility. A junior officer interrupted them. Director! We're detecting unusual energy signatures at the outer defense perimeter. Kelvor turned to the display. Identify. Unknown, sir. They match no registered vessel configuration, but sensors indicate multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace just beyond weapons range. In the Council chamber, an aide rushed to Morokarn delivering an urgent message. The Zivarian Arbiter's scales darkened with rage. Humans, he snarled, silencing the chamber. Their vessels have appeared in orbit around Ixalan itself. This is no longer rebellion, it is invasion. Outside the Ixalan orbital perimeter, 20 human stealth vessels maintained position, led by the EDS Intrepid under Captain Victor Reed. These weren't warships, they were diplomatic vessels, designed for first contact situations and retrofitted with experimental stealth technology. Maintain position, Captain Reed ordered. No aggressive movements. Shields at minimum power, just enough to prevent scanning of our internal systems. They've detected us, Captain, his tactical officer reported. As intended. Are we broadcasting on all standard Council frequencies? Yes, sir. The message is repeating in all 37 official Council languages. The message was simple. Earth was not invading. The vessels had come to offer direct negotiations, a chance to end the conflict before it escalated further. But only if the Council acknowledged Earth's sovereignty and the rights of all developing worlds to self-determination. On the Defiance, Eleanor received confirmation that the diplomatic mission had successfully deployed. Now we see if there are any reasonable voices left in the Council, she murmured. Thomas frowned at a new report on his tablet. Admiral, we're detecting unusual fleet movements in the Proxima cluster. Council military vessels are mobilizing, but their trajectory doesn't align with standard response protocols, meaning they're not heading toward Earth or any of the rebelling systems. They appear to be consolidating around key Council facilities. Thomas looked up, almost as if they're preparing for internal conflict. Eleanor's expression darkened. The Zavarians. They're making their move earlier than we anticipated. Throughout Council space, ships loyal to Arbiter Moro Karn began seizing control of strategic installations. On multiple worlds, Council security forces under Zavarian command implemented emergency protocols, ostensibly to maintain order, but effectively establishing martial law. In the Grand Chamber on Ixalan, Moro Karn addressed the increasingly divided assembly. The human threat requires decisive action. As military authority, I am implementing Emergency Protocol 9.3. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Protocol 9.3 temporarily suspended the authority of the other arbiters, placing all Council forces under direct Zavarian control. First Arbiter Vox Lumen rose in objection. This measure requires unanimous arbiter approval. Not during a confirmed invasion, Moro Karn replied smoothly. And human ships orbit our homeworld even as we speak. As if to punctuate his statement, the chamber lights flickered, evidence of the ongoing power struggle in Ixalan's defense systems. I have already dispatched loyal forces to secure key installations, Moro Karn continued. Once order is restored, we will address the human problem permanently. On Tarova, diplomat Murray received the news with alarm. The Zavarians are staging a coup within the Council, he reported to Admiral Wright. They're using our presence as justification. Eleanor's response was immediate. Contact all human vessels, implement contingency Talon, and get me a direct channel to the Luminary representatives. Throughout human-controlled space and beyond, Earth's hidden communication network activated. Ships changed formation, diplomatic missions went into lockdown, and sleeper agents received new directives. In the Council chamber, as Moro Karn continued outlining his emergency measures, a junior aide approached First Arbiter Vox Lumen, discreetly delivering a message. The First Arbiter's internal lights pulsed with surprise, then settled into a pattern that among his species indicated grim satisfaction. Arbiter Moro Karn, Vox Lumen interrupted, voice carrying unusual authority. Before you continue, you should be aware that representatives from 28 formerly classified developing worlds have just arrived in the Ixalan system. They request immediate audience with the full Council. Moro Karn's scales darkened. Impossible. Under Protocol 9.3, all interstellar travel to Ixalan is restricted. They arrived in human vessels. Vox Lumen replied calmly. Your defense grid did not detect them until they chose to be seen. Just as with the diplomatic ships already in orbit, the chamber erupted in confusion. Representatives demanded explanations, protection, or immediate military response. Moro Karn's supporters called for the incoming vessels to be destroyed, while others insisted on hearing the delegation. In the chaos, Security Director Kelvor received a priority transmission from Earth. To his surprise, it was addressed to him personally, from Admiral Eleanor Wright. Director Kelvor, her image stated without preamble. By now you've realized that Arbiter Moro Karn is using the human situation to seize control of the Council. This serves neither your interests nor ours. Kelvor's multiple eyes blinked in rapid succession. You assume much, human. I assume you're intelligent enough to see patterns, Director. The Zavarians have been positioning for this move for decades. We simply provided the catalyst. After a moment's consideration, Kelvor asked, what do you propose? A three-way communication. You, myself, and the Luminary delegation that I believe is already in contact. New Order Rising, the vast Council chamber on Ixalan, once the embodiment of galactic order and stability, now resembled a war zone. Emergency lighting cast harsh shadows across the room, while security barriers divided the space into contested territories. Representatives had been forced to choose sides in the growing conflict, with Zavarian loyalists controlling the main entrance and communications hub. First Arbiter Vox Lumen and his allies maintained a defensive position around the ancient consensus podium, the symbolic heart of Council authority. For the first time in 900 years, armed guards stood within the chamber itself, their weapons drawn and ready. The Zavarian forces have seized the orbital defense grid, reported Second Arbiter Mithrel, geometric segments shifting anxiously. Loyalist ships are being denied docking clearance. Vox Lumen's internal lights pulsed with grim determination. And the human diplomatic vessel? Captain Reed's ship successfully docked before Morokarn's forces secured the station. The delegation is proceeding to the secondary assembly hall under luminary protection. Beyond the chamber, throughout the massive council station, the power struggle continued. Security forces loyal to different arbiters established checkpoints and barricades. The station's civilian population, over 2 million beings from hundreds of species huddled in their quarters, receiving conflicting instructions from competing authorities. Security Director Kelvor moved through service corridors with a small team of trusted officers. His multiple limbs carried advanced weapons while his specialized eyes constantly scanned for threats. Status of the primary systems? He asked his second-in-command. Life support and critical infrastructure remain under neutral AI control, she replied. Morokarn's technicians have been unable to override the failsafes. Small mercies, Kelvor muttered. And the human delegation? Reached checkpoint 7. Luminary escorts are maintaining a defense perimeter. They'll arrive at the assembly hall in approximately 12 minutes. Kelvor nodded. Enough time. Proceed to junction 19C. We'll intercept them there. In the secondary assembly hall, a smaller version of the grand chamber, designed for committee meetings, the remaining arbiters gathered with representatives from the anti-Zavarian faction. The luminary delegate's form glowed with unusual intensity, reflecting her species' emotional state. The human fleet has entered luminary space, she announced. They're moving to defensive positions around our core worlds. Ripples of surprise moved through the gathering. Fifth Arbiter Loxeman chimed softly. The humans are defending luminary worlds? Against their own interests? Perhaps their interests are more complex than we assumed, Third Arbiter Crystallis noted. Or perhaps they simply recognize Morokarn as the greater threat. Before further discussion could unfold, the hall's massive doors parted to admit the human delegation. Ambassador Thomas Reeves entered first, followed by Captain Reed and representatives from 28. Formerly suppressed world, species that had never before set foot in council space without strict supervision. Thomas surveyed the gathering with calm confidence. Arbiters, representatives, I bring greetings from Earth and our allied worlds. First Arbiter, Vox Lumen's lights pulsed in formal acknowledgement. You come at a difficult time, Ambassador. We come at precisely the time we are needed, Thomas replied. The galaxy stands at a crossroads. The old order is collapsing. What replaces it is yet to be determined. In deep space, at the edge of luminary territory, Admiral Eleanor Wright stood on the bridge of the Defiance. The tactical display showed approaching Zavarian warships, over 400 vessels in attack formation. All ships in defensive position, Commander Jackson reported. Allied vessels have integrated into the formation. Those allied vessels, contributions from worlds inspired by Earth's defiance, were fewer in number and less advanced than human ships. But their presence was symbolically crucial. This was no longer humanity's fight alone. Dr. Thorne has completed calibration of the Nexus shield network, Jackson continued. Coverage extends to all major luminary worlds. Eleanor nodded. And our special operations teams? Deployed as ordered. Team Osiris has reached their objective, on the Zavarian command carrier. Aboard that command carrier, the inevitable conquest admiral, Draws of the Zavarian Guard prepared to launch the attack that would begin the new era of council rule. His failure in the Earth engagement had been forgiven by Arbiter Morokarn in exchange for absolute loyalty to the new regime. All vessels report ready, Admiral, his second announced. The human fleet is deployed in standard defensive formation around the luminary homeworld. Draz studied the tactical display with narrowed eyes. Their formation is too perfect, too predictable for a species known for innovation. He tapped a scaled finger against the display. Scan for anomalies throughout the system. Sir, preliminary scans show no full-spectrum analysis, Draz interrupted. They hid an entire fleet from us once before. I will not underestimate them again. As his crew implemented the enhanced scans, a maintenance technician worked quietly in a secondary engineering junction. To any observer, she appeared to be a standard Zavarian crew member performing routine checks. In reality, she was Lieutenant Maria Volkov of Earth Special Forces, surgically altered to pass as Zavarian. For 3 years she had maintained her cover, working her way into a position with access to critical systems. Now, as the battle preparations accelerated around her, she carefully planted the final components of a device that would disable the command carrier's shields at a crucial moment. "Osiris, leader to defiance," she subvocalized, the implant beneath her artificial scales transmitting the message through channels undetectable to Xaverian technology. Package delivered. Awaiting execution order. On Ixalan, the emergency council session continued. Thomas Reeves stood at the center of the chamber addressing the gathered representatives. "For 80 years, humanity endured council restrictions while preparing for this moment," he said. "Not because we sought war, but because we recognized the inevitability of conflict with a system built on suppression." He activated a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy, worlds in rebellion, council forces in disarray, and the Xavarian fleet converging on luminary space. Arbiter Morokarn believes he can crush resistance and establish a new, more oppressive regime. He is wrong. The old council is finished, but what replaces it is not yet determined. First, Arbiter Vox Lumen moved forward. "What do you propose, Ambassador?" "A new compact," Thomas replied without hesitation. "One founded on genuine cooperation rather than dominance. Equal representation for all spacefaring species. Technology sharing rather than suppression. Resource distribution rather than extraction." Before Vox Lumen could respond, Security Director Kelvor burst into the chamber. "Arbiters, Morokarn's forces have breached the main security perimeter. They're moving toward this location." As if to confirm his warning, distant explosions rumbled through the station. Emergency alerts began flashing on all displays. "We have minutes at most," Kelvor continued. "The Xavarian fleet has also engaged the human defenses in luminary space." Thomas touched his communication device. "Admiral Wright, status report?" Eleanor's voice came through clearly despite the vast distance. "Xavarian fleet engaged. Commencing Operation Sunburst." In luminary space, the battle unfolded with unexpected symmetry. The Xavarian warships advanced in perfect formation, their tactics refined through centuries of military doctrine. The human fleet and their allies appeared to respond conventionally, establishing a defensive perimeter around key worlds. Admiral Draz watched with growing suspicion. "The humans are fighting exactly as our tactical models predicted. After their innovations at Earth, this is inconsistent." His suspicions were justified. Throughout the luminary system, cloaked human vessels waited in strategic positions undetected by conventional sensors. Unlike the defensive fleet, these ships carried no weapons, only advanced communication arrays and specialized field generators. On the Defiance, Eleanor gave the order. "Execute Sunburst." Throughout the luminary system, the hidden vessels activated simultaneously. Rather than attacking the Xavarian fleet directly, they broadcast on frequencies used by Council command systems. The transmissions contained specialized code packages developed by Dr. Thorne, not to destroy but to reveal. Aboard every Xavarian vessel, command displays suddenly shifted. Secure files unlocked. Hidden communications became visible. The entire command structure of the Xavarian coup was exposed to every officer and crew member in the fleet. "What is happening?" Druz demanded as his own display filled with classified orders, including contingency, plans to eliminate non-Xavarian council species. "Once the new regime was established, sir." His communications, officer replied, voice shaking. "These transmissions are being broadcast to all vessels. Everyone is seeing everything." The strategy was elegant in its simplicity. Rather than fighting the Xavarian fleet, the humans were simply showing its own members the truth about their leader's intentions. On the command carrier's bridge, Admiral Draz watched in horror as his fleet's formation began to deteriorate. Vessels commanded by non-Xavarian officers broke ranks, powering down weapons or retreating entirely. "This is treachery," he snarled. "Override all command systems. Lock out all non-Xavarian personnel." "Too late," said a